Alright, hello everybody and welcome into the first weather live stream of 2025. I hope everybody is having a great start to the new year out there. Of course, whether you're watching this live with me as I'm doing this stream from around 9 to 10 Eastern Time, 8 to 9 Central Time on our Wednesday, January 1st, 2025, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. Of course, if I can get a thumbs up whether you're with me live or whether you're watching after down in the chat that you can hear me, that would be awesome, and we will get right into the content here momentarily. What you're looking at, though, is a graphic for the January 3rd through 7th snow zones risk. This is the graphic I've shown in my last couple of videos. And you can see those areas in the blue are going to have the best chance for some heavy snow as we push with this winter storm that is coming into the coming days. It looks like as you push out of parts of Nebraska, going into Kansas, as we push into Iowa, Missouri, into Illinois, parts of Indiana, and then into northern Kentucky, Ohio, and then into West Virginia. That is going to be that best chance track for some heavy snow as we see a low-pressure system that could also have some ice pivot out of parts of the Central Plains, making its way to the east as we go towards parts of the Mid-Atlantic. So let's see, we've got a bunch of stuff going on in the chat. And yes, we do have thumbs ups in the chat. Thank you to everybody who is taking the time to tune into this stream, as I mentioned. Of course, leave a like to support this, and of course, hit that subscribe button down below if you are new to the channel. But I want to go ahead and get into the forecast here as we're going to pivot on over. I haven't done a live stream in a couple of months here. Let's pivot on over now to the European model as we're going to take a look at these live latest weather model maps. I really appreciate everybody who is tuning in, though, to this latest live stream, as it has been a little while since we've been doing consistent streams right here on the channel. I plan on doing a forecast for about the first 10 to around 15 minutes of this stream, and then after that we're going to get right into the question and answering, whether you have questions as you're here with me live or if you're watching after, that's when we're going to do that. But let's go ahead and get right into the future radar playthrough here using your European model as we push to the end of this week. Here we go, starting off as we just go out of our Thursday, January 2nd into our Friday, January 3rd. Really not much going on across a lot of the country. If you look at the grand scheme of things, a little bit of snow is going to, as we go out of our Thursday into Friday, push out of parts of the Midwest, sinking on down here into parts of the Ohio Valley. We're also going to be looking at a chance of some rain and then high elevation mountain snow here, especially as you push out of places like Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, and then into parts of Idaho and Montana. Now, overall, the setup that we're seeing across the country, and I can show you this briefly with your European ensemble temperature anomaly. Look at what's going on across the country. This is as we go towards Friday afternoon. While all of this is going on, and we've got a pretty dry, quiet pattern to finish this week, we've got this area where we're just generally looking at cooler than average air sinking down into the central and parts of the eastern United States. This cooler than average air is going to be in place when all of this energy that you see compiling in the west begins to move out, and this is why we're going to be seeing that significant winter storm possibility starting in the Central Plains, then pushing towards the Ohio Valley and maybe even the Mid-Atlantic. It's looking more and more likely that even the Mid-Atlantic could get some heavy snow out of this, especially as it wraps up around Sunday and into Monday. There's also even going to be some severe weather with this storm, really looking pretty dynamic, and we're going to analyze both of the models. And again, we're looking at this European model first. Starting off here as we go into our Saturday, January 4th, into the afternoon time frame. This is what we're looking at a chance of some snow. This is pretty set in stone because this is just about 3 days out from when I'm recording this live stream here as we finish our Wednesday. By the time we go to this time and into the rest of the afternoon and evening Saturday, snow breaking out, coming out in some even heavier pockets of Montana, Wyoming, and then into the Dakotas. Looking at a chance for some freezing rain or just some light rain to kick off here somewhere into the Central Plains, likely around Kansas. A lot of this light freezing drizzle, you can't underestimate this because this is what can, over time, as it falls gradually hour by hour, it can certainly cause issues with slippery roadways as well as some power outages. So be on the lookout for that even into parts of Kansas, pushing into Missouri. But when the storm really begins to ramp up is as we finish our Saturday and then as we push into the early part of our Sunday, January 5th. Notice your low pressure continues forming up somewhere right around here on that Kansas-Oklahoma border. That's where that most likely chance for this is going to be. When you have a low-pressure system, you have a counterclockwise circulation. And guess what the counterclockwise circulation does? If you're flowing like this, look where that counterclockwise flow takes you. It takes you right through the Gulf of Mexico and then starts pumping moisture up into the low-pressure system into the central United States. So again, we're going to have a chance for some rain here where we get that initial moisture and warmth pushing up into parts of the Mid-South. This could even escalate into a severe weather situation by the end of our Sunday. And then in addition to that, of course, we are going to see all that moisture meeting up with the cooler air that's in place that I just showed you a moment ago. And that will quickly create a transition probably somewhere in Kansas and Missouri to ice. And then we transition over to snow as you push further into a place like Nebraska, Iowa, as well as even possibly northern Missouri based on at least this model. As we go through the day Sunday, this is when the storm just becomes even more dynamic. Really interesting to look at as a weather, enthusiast, forecaster, meteorologist, whatever. As this pushes to the east and starts making its way towards the Ohio Valley, you've really got more moisture pushing north, coming from parts of the Gulf Coast, stretching on up here into Louisiana, Mississippi. That's where we could begin to see our severe weather events Sunday afternoon in these zones. And then you got that transition zone somewhere into Missouri, far southern Illinois, parts of Indiana, Kentucky, southern Ohio, into West Virginia. Sunday during the day, we could see some very significant, especially where I just drew that dashed line, that zigzag. We're going to have the potential for some significant freezing rain and ice accretion, and that's where we're going to have the biggest concerns for power outages, I think, wherever that ends up exactly ending up. For those heaviest freezing rain totals, that's where we're going to have to watch the power outages. But man, look at all this snow. Northern Missouri, as you push into parts of central Illinois. Same goes over here as you even go into parts of Indiana, Ohio, as well as West Virginia. This model really cranking out the snow, and the latest European runs have actually kind of leveled out. The trend was further north than this a few days ago. Then it went further south as we go within the last day or two. And then now we're kind of in a medium ground zone where it looks like central Indiana, central Illinois, central Indiana, pushing into parts of central Ohio, and then southern Pennsylvania, as well as northern parts of West Virginia. That might be that best chance zone for that heaviest stripe of snow. Where, by the way, wherever you get that heaviest stripe of snow, it's still looking like it could easily go over 8 to 12 inches with even some foot-plus totals. By the way, this is as we go out of Sunday, late day, into the early part of our Monday, where we'll be watching continued storms still ongoing down here more than likely. That's pretty high confidence from Tennessee down into parts of Alabama and especially Mississippi. These storms, the closer you go to the Gulf Coast, the more moisture you got right in here. Still possibly some overnight severe weather Sunday night going into Monday. Then as we go into the day Monday, rain pushes through the southeast U.S., maybe still some stronger storms into the Carolinas and Georgia. But overall, we then start seeing cooler air crashing down, and all the models agree that even if you don't necessarily start with snow in a place like Kentucky, you're probably going to see some freezing rain in a lot of that state throughout the course of this event, and then you transition to snow as the cold air finishes to wrap this around and end. Is it going to be a heavy snow? More than likely, no. But where we could even see some heavy snow is still on that original north side here as this pushes through the mid-Atlantic, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Parts of Maryland, you're going to be close to the ice snow line, and the same goes as you push over here into a place like New Jersey. Long Island, New York City, parts of southern Connecticut and Rhode Island, you could even be dealing with a little bit of some heavier scale snow briefly at some point on Monday as this pushes through. And then look at that, we are done by the time we go to Tuesday, and there's almost no precipitation falling other than a little bit of lake effect snow and maybe a little bit of rocky snow by the time we go into our Tuesday, January 7th. Let's go ahead and compare while we're on that general model track. Let's go ahead and compare your latest European model that I just showed you here to the latest GFS model. Overall, as the storm initializes, a very similar setup, right? Late Saturday, that's when we start to see some of that energy exiting parts of the Rockies, coming on down here into the Central Plains. It's light initially because we don't really have a strong surface low here into the plains to start pulling up all of that Gulf moisture and getting our system going. But look at what happens when we do start to see that low pivot east and strengthen up a little bit. That is likely going to be a good bit as a result of all of this available Gulf moisture pushing north. That's when this storm begins kicking up more, and that's why those heaviest snow totals are likely directly due north here of that Gulf of Mexico. One thing I am going to say, this GFS model certainly has the low a little bit weaker, and it does have it a little bit further south, so maybe just more general rain as opposed to severe weather if you go with this solution as you go down towards the mid-south and the lower Mississippi Valley. And then still a very similar ice line, I will say, to the Euro. Let me go back to the Euro here. Here's your European model solution. This is as we go to Sunday afternoon. Here's the difference. Euro, GFS. Euro, GFS. These are the latest runs. They will continue to pivot around a little bit. This is not a specific forecast to tell you exactly how much snow you're going to get or who's going to get, the most ice and freezing rain or even the severe weather. This is just showing you that general comparison that the models are starting to line up a little bit more and more day by day. And it looks like overall, this general zone right here is going to have that conflict between ice and snow, and that could maybe even try to extend further north into parts of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. But generally, based on the overall consensus between our GFS and Euro guidance, as you push on up here into north-central Missouri, stretching over into central Illinois, and then as you go into parts of Indiana and southern Ohio, somewhere in there that is going to be that best chance for heavy snow. And, if you look with this European solution as well, it has it a little bit far north. So this general box zone right in here, so that's where we're going to have that best chance for a foot plus of snow. But down in that southern part of that's where we're going to have a little bit more of that conflict and a chance for some of that ice to create not only more dangerous conditions in terms of power outages. You can get power outages with the snow, but definitely not as much as the freezing rain. But this will also just, mess up your snow as just a snow lover, even if you don't necessarily have power outage issues down here. I think it's going to be very close, flirting with either freezing rain or snow right along this Ohio River Valley. That's going to be possibly that exact divide, especially as we look at the latest models. Just for fun, let's look at the Canadian model, and it's looking... Ooh, I did not click on the Canadian model. That's my bad. Canadian model. Here we go. Looking at that Canadian model, it's very, very similar to the GFS and the Euro. I know the GFS and the Euro aren't exactly the same, but that general trend is right along or just south of that Ohio River Valley. That's where we see rain turn to ice. And then right along or just north of that is where we see the snow. And I think this is almost a good average between that GFS and the Euro solution. So in northern Missouri, you're looking like mostly snow, if not all snow. Very heavy snow at that for most of this event. Central Illinois, best chance for some heavy snow that could go uninterrupted. Same goes into a place like Indianapolis there in central Indiana. And then as we push over here, even into central Ohio, I don't think your chance for a heavy snow is done just yet up here to Chicago, to Fort Wayne, Indiana, over to Cleveland, Ohio, and even into Detroit, Michigan. But overall, most model solutions are keeping that, especially that exact heaviest track, just a little bit south of you. And then again, overnight, Sunday night into Monday, we push this into the Mid-Atlantic where things could get messy with that ice that tries to bank up here into the central Appalachians and parts of Virginia. But then we also have some of that snow that could briefly be heavy somewhere here. And Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I wouldn't rule out several inches of snow for you with some of the snow that we could get. Not necessarily the heaviest that anyone's going to see, but it's definitely going to be, briefly light to moderate to even briefly heavy through the day, Monday, in those zones. But that is going to be the conclusion for our model comparison. With that being said, now I want to go ahead and give you a look at your European ensembles. I think this is a good job. It blends a bunch of different pieces of guidance together. It's not just your individual Euro model by itself. And I want to go ahead and blend everything together, give you a look at where that best chance, at least according to these Euro ensembles, is going to be for your heaviest snowfall and who gets that big stripe. First of all here, this is your snow just as we go through around Monday, January 6th into the evening. Notice, again, a lot going on out west. The Cascades get over a foot of snow by this point. We've got over a foot of snow here into the mountains of Idaho and into Montana. Same goes here on that Idaho, Wyoming, and northern Utah border zone. Then we see a little bit lighter of snow. I think the general confidence is for 3 to 6 inches with maybe a few locally higher spots as you push through parts of South Dakota. A lot of the state getting snow, though. Same goes down here into Nebraska and then northeast Kansas. And then right there, as you shift out of Omaha, Nebraska, and northeast Kansas, and then start going east from there, at least to where you bank up against the Appalachians, that's where that best chance for the heavy stripe of snow is going to be. Again, best chance for that uninterrupted snow is going to be right here from northern Missouri through central Illinois into central parts of Indiana, right through Indianapolis, and then down here into at least central Ohio, maybe even the southern parts of the state. And then we could get the most snow right here as you bank up against the Appalachians and parts of West Virginia and southwest and south central parts of Pennsylvania. Are we going to be seeing a widespread amount of snow across this entire area right here? Yeah, so everybody's going to see at least a little bit of snow, whether it's as the storm initializes, whether it's that consistent light snow that we could see as far north as maybe Milwaukee into Chicago, at least briefly at some point in time, or whether it's that snow that's just going to wrap out this storm in a place like Kentucky as we finish this on Monday. Everybody in those blue areas is anticipated at least to see some flakes during this event. It's just in this zone right here where we're seeing that increase in confidence for that best chance of 6+ inches. And in some cases, we're seeing those models really indicating a foot plus being possible. The exact track is not necessarily going to be right along this line that you're seeing the ensembles showing. But just to give you a look that the confidence is increasing at this, let me go to the ensembles from, say, around yesterday's time frame. If we can get those to pull up, for some reason, those ones from yesterday aren't pulling up. But here's your GFS ensembles. Let's do those. You can see a little bit further south of that snow, but very, very similar. Instead of maybe the exact central parts of Illinois and Indiana, it has that 8 to 12+ inch snow stripe a little bit closer down here towards the southern parts of Illinois and Indiana, but the general trend is the same. I mean, look at the difference between your blended guidance with your Euro ensembles and your GFS ensembles. That's very minuscule for that heaviest stripe. And it definitely looks like you'll rack up into the mountains of West Virginia and southwest PA out of this. That is for sure. I will get to your questions whether you're on the live chat or if you're viewing this afterwards and you're just leaving a comment down below. I'll get to those in about 3 minutes. But one last thing I do want to cover here before we start answering questions on the winter storm and all of that. I do want to break down the rest of your temperature changes because behind this winter storm, things are going to go way cooler than average. Look at this, by the time we go into our Sunday afternoon, while we've got the low right here, bringing up severe weather into parts of the Mid-South, it is bringing that big cool air shield coming down here through the north central plains. Temperatures expected by these European ensembles to be at least 15 to 25 degrees below average on up into those zones. And then notice what happens from there. This cool air continues to expand east. Once we get dried out by the time we go towards Tuesday, January 7th, and most, if not all of that snow is off the east coast with whatever that system does as it concludes Monday. Look at this, temperatures anywhere from this east coast line all the way back to the north central plains, points in between looking to be at least 15 degrees below average. Some spots here along the Mississippi Valley, according to these European ensembles, around 25 to even 35 degrees below normal for this time of the year. And then the cold air will only continue to just build as we go deeper into January, and especially it looks strong around January 8th into the 9th as you go into the Ohio Valley, into the central Appalachians and southern Appalachians. And the crazy thing about some of this guidance is, too, even as we push way further down the line, look at this. This is carrying us all the way towards, say, January 14th. These greens indicate pretty high confidence in cool air still being around, so that could mean our snow track shifts further south, and I don't want to get too much into that into this live stream, but if we do have specific questions on those, on the possible southern snow track down the line, I'll certainly answer those. But again, certainly looks like these zones, once you get this cold and dry pushing in from the north, you kind of got to get closer to the Gulf of Mexico for some of that moisture. So do we get a southern snowstorm with all this cold air lingering around for an extended period of time? Certainly going to be something to watch. Don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but that's just something that I'm monitoring here. And that's something we're going to have to continue to kind of track as we go into the future. So I hope that was a good overview of everything coming with the winter storm and the cool down. Now what I want to do is go ahead and start opening questions for those of you down in the live chat below. So if you have any questions, if you would, whether you're watching this with me live or if you're in the comment section after, could you let me know, not your specific city, but let me know, if you're in southern Illinois or central Indiana, and that will help probably more people than just your specific city get that data, because if you're near central Indiana, then the forecast is generally looking about the same, so that'll help more people, hopefully, if you say central Indiana or southern Ohio, or I'm in central Mississippi, wherever you may be, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. If I miss one of yours, just, leave an additional question down below, but just try not to spam down there either. Let's see what kind of questions we have. Do you think Cincinnati, Ohio will get a lot of snow and ice? Well, let's go ahead and give you that latest look at the forecast here. Here's your GFS model. As you push down towards Cincinnati, southern Ohio definitely having that best chance of snow, and it is going to be really close to being on that ice line. If you take a look down there, anywhere in southern and central Ohio, this forecast part, this part of this update, let me go ahead and answer that question and cover all of southern and central Ohio. Look at this. European model shows that ice line right there along that Ohio River. It could be very, very close to ice and snow. But man, let me tell you, the precip is going to be heavy through the day Sunday and into the early part of our Monday early morning. As this pushes on through these areas, it's going to be either an extended period of snow or ice, or a mix kind of both on and off here in that Cincinnati and southern Ohio zone. But if you find yourself getting that snow, it could be that foot-plus stripe that comes right over you. It's really going to have to depend, and I'll keep you updated in probably an update video or something over the next day or two as to where those models are really going to start honing in, and the forecasts are going to be finalized for who gets that most snow and ice. Okay, I got that one. So yeah, I answered that. Let's see what else we've got. What about central Illinois? Again, I'm probably missing several of these comments because I'm taking about 30 seconds to answer each one. So please just continue putting them down there in that live chat, and I'll get to yours as soon as I can. Let's talk about central Illinois. There in central Illinois, that is really where that ensemble and general model confidence, pretty much every single model is not showing ice all the way up, especially the further north you go here into the central part of the state. So I think we're going to be mostly, if not fully, snow unless some guidance really shifts up into this zone right here of central Illinois and Indiana. And whether you look at the GFS model like this, or if you go back and you pivot on over here and look at your European model, which is showing this solution, really looks like central Illinois. Sure, you might come close to that freezing rain line, but especially if you're north of right here, it really looks like you're in that bullseye spot with whichever model you look at for some of that heaviest snow, and it could definitely amount to several inches to maybe even upwards of a foot in locally high amounts. Certainly something we're going to have to track. I don't want to pinpoint anybody's really specific totals in this stream, but definitely giving you a general idea that it looks like mainly snow in that general zone. Let's see what else we've gotten since that question. I'm in Alabama. Yeah, Alabama, it is looking like we're going to be getting down in that area as well as Mississippi out of this storm. Anyway, if you're worrying about the longer range possibility of southern snow and ice, I can talk about that later on as well. But down here, as you push into parts of Mississippi and Alabama, looks like we're going to have the potential as we go out of late Sunday, heading into Sunday night here. Not freezing rain, not snow, but we're looking at the potential for some severe thunderstorms as we tap into some of that warm Gulf moisture that's going to be kicking on up and moving into these areas. That's something we've certainly got to keep an eye on, and I'll keep you updated on that if you are in those areas. Let's see, can lower Michigan see snow? I mean, a lot of snow. Well, here's the deal. This is your most pretty much northerly track you're going to find on the models, and this is your Euro model. It only has about light snow making it up to that Michigan border. So I would not get confident on any sort of heavy snow in Michigan out of this one. Here's your GFS. Unless it's a lake effect or something that might try to conclude this event, which doesn't look too significant as of now, out of this specific snowstorm, nothing too crazy in southern Michigan. I mean, the GFS doesn't really have any snow in southern Michigan out of this. The most extreme north case is your Euro model. Even if things shift north a little bit, as of now, that heaviest snow stripe at the furthest north is in central Illinois, central Indiana, and ends around Chicago and Fort Wayne at the highest spot that it gets. So Michigan, not looking great for you as of now if you are a snow lover in those areas. Let's see. Do we know how much snow southern Maryland is going to get? I don't want to really lean into showing you these specific totals, but we can look at this European ensemble again to at least give you a look that there's increasing confidence. Southern Maryland, I certainly think you're going to have a good chance at getting a few inches, at least by the time this thing is all said and done. Here's a look at that European model being played out. And yeah, Maryland, you might see some ice, and that could be a problem in getting some of that snow accumulation. In fact, it could even cause some power outages as we go out of Sunday into our Monday. But then also note, we're kind of looking at that chance of snow. If it's not at least initially snow, we might start as snow and then turn to a little bit of ice. And then I definitely think in most of Maryland, if not all of the state, if these models hold, we end with some moderate snow as we go to the end of the day Monday. But again, that could be on top of a slushy mess that's already fallen, and that could limit your accumulations. As of now, European ensemble members are averaging out to multiple inches of snow, but not, a foot plus or anything like that as you go into southern parts of Maryland. If we look at your GFS ensembles, a very similar thing, a few, maybe 3 to 6 inches, and that would be pushing it, I'd say. I don't want to go too bullish on the forecast just yet. Again, just focus on the fact that it looks like you'll definitely have the potential for some wintry precip. We don't want to focus on exactly how much, considering that we're still about 4 days out. By the way, thank you so much to everybody who is here. We've got 385 viewers as of this time. 70 likes. I'd love it if you'd hit that like button. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button right down below as well. Let's see what else is going on. Thanks from the upstate of South Carolina. You are very welcome. Will Wake Forest get snow? What about Central? Again, with the questions, I do want to ask that you kind of say a general area or a part of a state. That way multiple people might be able to get help from your question. Let's see, I already answered these. Central Maryland, yeah, we were just talking about southern and central Maryland. I certainly think the further north you go in Maryland, the better chance you're going to get of some heavier snowfall because, again, further north you go with this storm until you get to that cutoff point right up here, of course, you're definitely going to have that better chance of getting multiple inches of snow, whereas the further south you go, you're kind of flirting with that ice along this general line somewhere in here. Hopefully we're not lagging too much as of now. Let's see. Southwest Michigan. Yeah, I mean, you'd get hit if it shifts further north on all these models, but again, I haven't really seen anything too significant. I mean, this is the furthest north the European model has been in a little bit, and even it's not really carrying too much into Southwest Michigan. Could you still get multiple inches of snow if this shifts a little bit? Certainly so. You're not too far from that heaviest stripe on these, rogue models. I'm just not seeing that being the main solution. And especially if you look at this blended guidance like a European ensemble, look at what it's showing. Again, not much down there in Southwest Michigan. A lot of this could even be some of that near-term lake effect or whatever else is going on. Most of the stuff here comes through parts of the Midwest into the Ohio Valley like that. Again, is it going to be along this exact line that this is showing right now? Probably not, but that's a pretty good line indicator of where we're going to have that best chance of a foot plus totals as of now. Low country of South Carolina, are you getting snow, freezing, rain, or just rain? Well, out of this storm, I can tell you one thing. Well, let's look at the GFS model. Just rain, nothing freezing rain or anything like that in South Carolina out of this storm. Could there maybe try to be a flurry at the very end into late Monday? Wouldn't rule that out, maybe into North Carolina especially. But not seeing anything that really screams out to me for anything freezing out of this system. When we could start to see snow chances increases once the cool air is really building up by the time we go to the middle to the back half of next week, January 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. And when you got that kind of setup, maybe we could get some snow down into the lower parts of South Carolina and North Carolina, wherever. but it's too far out to talk too much about that, and I don't really want to, buy into any of that stuff just yet. Certainly looks like a more favorable pattern down the line, but not the specific winter storm that I'm breaking down more in this video. Northwest Florida is definitely going to be getting a little bit of some quick rain out of this storm. Maybe even some isolated severe weather that you'll have to watch into early Monday as this pushes through, but it's pretty much out of here, and we cool down pretty significantly. And we can break down those temperatures more in a minute if everybody wants to. But that's going to be the deal as we push towards the middle to the back half of next week, cooling down for a lot of folks. Let's see what else we have. Sorry if I've missed yours again. Just continue putting these in. I'm probably well behind by this point in the live comments on answering your questions. We talked a good bit about Michigan. I don't know where Framingham is. If you can say a part of a state, that would be great. Let's see. Southeast Texas. Yeah, first of all, here in the near term, Southeast Texas, if anything, just watching showers and storms. Maybe a rogue severe storm, but mainly just looking like showers and storms as we go out of our late Sunday. That quickly moves through, then we cool way down, and then we could see maybe a snow event trying to get going somewhere into these areas by the time we go towards middle to the back half of next week. But again, these are signals. I mean, this winter storm, this near-term one, isn't even fully set in stone, so we don't want to focus on this just yet, but the GFS model picking up on something possible wintry mid to late next week that you'll have to watch there. Do I think Oklahoma gets any kind of frozen precipitation? Let's go ahead and look at that area. Great question. Haven't had anything from Oklahoma just yet. GFS model not showing anything frozen unless you're maybe along that Oklahoma-Kansas border. If we go to the European model, very similar. As of now, the models have continued trending out of frozen precip, but it is going to be a very cold rain for a lot of Oklahoma, especially initially, and as you go further north in the state. What about D.C.? Should you expect snow, ice, or sleet? Well, this kind of falls along the lines with what I was talking about with Maryland. I think you're definitely going to have a potential maybe for a mix of snow turning to ice and sleet. There's those oranges. Yeah, I forgot to even mention earlier, not just freezing rain, we could also even see a little bit of sleet piling up in some of these areas along that freezing rain to snow transition. So again, your transitions with this wintry weather normally goes rain, then you turn to freezing rain, then you turn to sleet, then you turn to snow. The biggest pockets are definitely going to be for just the rain, the freezing rain, and the snow, though. Into Maryland, if you go with the GFS model, it keeps you as mostly snow during this event, but the European model has a lot of ice pushing up into Maryland and D.C., so right now, I can tell you this. Snow is definitely going to fall. I can almost say that with 100% confidence at some point in this event in Maryland, but it might not amount to, several inches of snow in a lot of zones, and we're going to have a decent chance for some ice to try and get in the mix. And so just prepare as if this is going to be an ice storm, not a snowstorm, is what I'd say for now. I'm just going to cover North Carolina in general for getting any snow. No, I'm not anticipating any crazy snow unless it's a flurry to wrap out this event or in the far western North Carolina mountains out of this as we go out of Sunday into Monday. Best chance for snow would be with anything that comes along this general track as we go towards the end of next week, but we got plenty of time to track that out. Let's see, what about Northern Tennessee? That's a great question. Northern Tennessee, you are going to find yourself in a very kind of close situation. Again, these are probably comments from a little while back now. Yeah, I've missed several. What about Northern Tennessee? Let me go ahead and go over to that, though. Northern Tennessee. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Northern Tennessee, European model's turning rain for you, maybe even some stronger storms. GFS is saying Northern Tennessee could briefly see freezing rain, but the good news with this is, even if you briefly start with freezing rain with this, worst case scenario, so to speak, look at what the GFS model has as we go through the later part of the day Sunday. It really transitions to rain. You might end with a couple inches of snow or a dusting at least as this concludes to finish the event. Before I get to everybody else's comments and questions, I do want to just get to the super chat that just came in because, of course, I do appreciate that donation from you there. Kendall Bailey, thank you very much for tuning in. I noticed quite a few of the storms are going towards ourselves. Is Michigan going to get snow at all this year? Or are snows going to stay, I think, to our south is what that means to say. It's very difficult to predict exactly where winter storms are going to go as we continue to push through the rest of this winter. But one thing I can tell you is that as you push on up there into the southern parts of Michigan with this storm, unless the trend goes way further north, even the most bullish model for that area, which is your Euro model, does not really carry the snow on up into that zone. So, with this setup, I don't really see a crazy snow into Michigan unless you're getting some of the lake effect that could come on and off with this cold pattern that continues through next week. Notice we could get some lake effect in some of these zones. The GFS model showing a little bit of lake effect there in far western Michigan around Wednesday, January 8th as the cold pattern pushes in. But generally, the thing with this pattern, and I think a lot of people are, kind of missing this part anyway, the further north you go. When you've got the pattern this cold and you've got, Arctic blast coming down, Arctic blast doesn't just mean cold, it means dry. So the air is cold and dry coming on up here through the north central plains, pushing into the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. So when you got cold, dry air pushing in, that's not as favorable for snow. And it's crazy to say this, I'd bet on a better favorable pattern for snow down here than I would like right here once we go beyond this winter storm that I'm forecasting in this video, which is crazy to say. But as of now, that's kind of the track we're looking at. But I appreciate that super chat. Thank you very much for that. If I've missed your comment or question, please continue to just put it in now and then. Don't spam your question. But there's just one of me, and I'm trying to get to everybody's here. Any snow in North Texas? Best chance for snow in North Texas. You'll have to wait towards later next week with whatever signals we're seeing for maybe Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And beyond that time, as we're continuing with the cool pattern. For now, it just looks like rain as we go towards Sunday, if anything, though, in those zones. We talked about Northwest Tennessee. Northern Ohio with severe storm filmer. That's a good question. We haven't heard Northern Ohio yet. It really looks like it's going to be borderline, really on that borderline there for that heavy snow, I can tell you that. GFS model really just wants to bring a very brief light snow into late Sunday. European model's saying, look, even into northeast Ohio, we could get a brief batch of some heavier snow out of this. So I wouldn't call it over, but it is going to be really close. You're going to be on the cold side of the storm, though, so you definitely, if you get anything, it's not going to be ice, it will be snow. I just don't think it's necessarily going to be the biggest totals unless we see a major shift. Do I think it will be the Euro model or the GFS for this storm? I hate to be this guy, but I'm going to say the Canadian, because it's a good blend of the Euro and GFS right now. I hate to say that, but this Canadian, really, that snow stripe lines up pretty well with our ensemble guidance as well. And then the ice somewhere down into parts of the Ohio Valley, I must say. Let's see, we've got a new super chat, so before I get back to the other comments and questions, I will answer this one real quick. Let me drink a little water real quick, though. I haven't had any during this stream so far. But thank you, Skin2145, for that super chat. Again, anybody who donates during this stream is really greatly appreciated, but again, that's not necessary. I'm trying to get to everybody's comments and questions, even if you don't donate. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, here looking at the Canadian model, which is a good blend, I think, of what we're looking at with the Euro and the GFS. Certainly shows that southwest corner of Pennsylvania getting a chance for some heavy snowfall. If we look at the GFS, it definitely shows some snow, not as heavy, but it shows snow coming through. And if we were to pivot this on over to your Euro model, it is showing not only heavy snow, but trying to transition to ice with how far north the Euro brings this storm. So if I had to say, it looks like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is in line to at least get moderate snow, and it could definitely even be heavy. Look where your European ensembles are showing for that snow confidence. It carries that heaviest stripe of snow even into southwest PA, where we could get several inches of snow, maybe even pushing towards a foot in some areas. So again, am I putting this set in stone? No, but it certainly looks like snow for those areas, and even the GFS ensembles are saying multiple inches of snow, not necessarily a foot, but definitely upwards of 3 to 6 in Pittsburgh. So looking good for Pittsburgh if as a snow lover. Don't mark my words on the exact totals just yet, but it definitely looks like a decent bit of snow into Pittsburgh, whichever model you look at. Let's see what else we have. Will DC get 6 inches? I'm not calling anything on exact totals like that. European or GFS, we were just talking about that. Dayton, Ohio. Well, again, we've been talking about Ohio a good bit, and I just, every time I talk about, instead of a specific city, I think it's easier, instead of me looking at exactly where these cities are specifically every time and figuring all of that out, I think it's best that we do this where we kind of look at the general state as a whole. Here we go out of Sunday into Monday again. It looks like the closer you go down there to the Ohio River, Cincinnati, places like that, we're going to have a better chance of ice mixing in, especially if you go with this more northerly solution in the Euro. But as you push on up here into central Ohio, better chance, in fact, best chance of anywhere, I think, for a decent heavy swath of snow. Could this change? Yes. Any of this stuff can change, but it certainly looks like this little swath right here having that best chance for heavy snow. And then the further north you go up here into northern Ohio, the snow chance kind of drops off a little bit as of the latest model runs. Although you could still get a brief heavier accumulation even up there. Cleveland wouldn't fully rule that out. Let's talk about Kentucky. I see a question about Kentucky, and we haven't talked too much about Kentucky. We talked about Tennessee, Indiana. Illinois, Ohio. Here we go. Looking at Kentucky. Kentucky. In fact, I want to pivot over to this graphic real quick. This does a good job here. This might help a lot of people out, actually. This is your graphic from the Weather Prediction Center. I blew this up so that you can see it a little bit bigger on your screen here. This graphic on the bottom right side especially does a good job of kind of overviewing what's going on here with this storm system. Those indicate your best chance of at least moderate snowfall impacts as of today's update on this storm. So northern Missouri pushing into central Illinois, you're looking pretty golden as a snow lover. Unfortunately, we might see some power outages even with the snow, though, in these areas, especially if we get at least some breeziness. But then as you go into Indiana, Ohio, that's kind of where that confidence decreases for snow. Is it a little further south towards northern Kentucky? Possibly. So Kentucky, you're looking like a winter war zone, so to speak, out of this setup. And it looks like that greatest potential for significant ice is going to be there. So I think we're going to be kind of on that borderline of snow and ice. The models are also agreeing on that. And it is going to be a really close call through Kentucky. Stick with me for more updates in the future. I think Kentucky is going to be one of those states that has some of the biggest swings out of this storm, as we could shift, especially to the northern part of the state, anywhere from heavy snow of upwards of maybe even a foot, and it go back down to ice in an instant. Depending on which model you look at. Will it snow in Mount Pleasant, Texas? Let me look on my own personal in here and figure out where Mount Pleasant, Texas is really quick here. And then we'll move on to some of these other questions that were coming in. I'm probably going to stream for about another 20 minutes as of when I'm saying this. And then any other additional questions can still be asked down in the regular comment section that comes up after the stream. Mount Pleasant, Texas. Let's find where that is, and then we're going to look at where your snow chance is. And then we'll get back to everybody else's regular questions. Okay, northeast Texas, first of all, obviously just rain and storms, maybe even some stronger ones to watch as we go into our Sunday out of this particular system. Then from there, again, I don't want to signal it or zoom in on anything specific, but if we look at the GFS model, let's just do it. As we push to the middle of the back half of next week, there's a signal from the latest run. The run before also was trying to blow something up. So I think around Wednesday towards Thursday towards Friday next week, I didn't want to talk about this too much in this stream, but the super chat made me. I think somewhere in the south, mid to late next week, we might have to watch a snow chance that goes up. I will say that. We can't even focus on specific snow totals out of that because that's way too far out, but something might try to ride the southern quarter of the U.S. next week. That's all I can say. Middle of the back half of next week, once we're a couple days past this winter storm. Let's talk about New York. I see a New York comment that has come in. Again, remember, I'm not talking about specific cities. I'm talking about the general states or parts of the state, one at a time. I see a question about New York, so that's the next one we're going to do. Out of this storm, obviously, all the way up into this system, depending on where you are, I recommend going to weather.gov. That's your National Weather Service website. Gives you that latest up-to-date information on your specific city if you type in the search bar where you want to look up. But here you go, into central parts of New York. It looks like we're going to have some lake effect up until this storm in some parts, especially as you go closer to the lakes. But it looks like out of this snowstorm, womp womp, and not a big chance for snow, even with these more northerly trending models. I mean, look, this is not the European wave model. Crud. European model, here we go. Monday, I mean, even this Euro model really cuts off the snow there right into central New York. Very light snow, if anything, out of the snowstorm itself. Everything else will be lake effect. We've talked about central Virginia, and I believe I already answered your question. KIV, I see your question, the most recent one here in the chat. Central Virginia, well, actually you were talking about Maryland, I believe. Let's talk about central Virginia. Let's see. It looks like Central Virginia, you're certainly going to have a best chance for ice. Back on that graphic I showed a minute ago. Weather Prediction Center also thinking ice might try to pivot into these zones. Look at this. Central Virginia, it's going to be very close to rain, sleet, or snow. But I definitely think it's going to be trending more towards, say, a freezing rain or sleet as opposed to a snow. Even your GFS model, which is a more southerly snow track, still showing central and south central parts of Virginia with that freezing rain. We're going to have to watch the freezing rain band. Again, just to show you that there is still a difference in your models on where that exact wintry precipitation is going to go, here is your freezing rain total from your GFS model, and then here's your freezing rain total from the Euro. GFS, Euro. GFS, Euro. GFS, Euro. And again, right to the north of this freezing rain line is where you're going to get that heaviest snow possible. So as of now, Euro takes the ice right along that Ohio River Valley, and then it would dump that heaviest snow right here. Actually, let's do a color code. So Euro would dump the heaviest snow just north of the ice, so right here, just while we're on this topic. If you go back to the GFS, there's your ice. Let's use black for the GFS. Right north of that ice would be that heaviest snow. So it'd be a little bit further south. That was a terrible drawing. More like this, kind of cut off here. So again, we still got a little bit of time to kind of pinpoint the exact areas, but we're definitely seeing more overlap right in here, and that's why I think that heaviest snow is going to cut right through places like Missouri into Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. Thanks again to all of the new people hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button. It is greatly appreciated, all of you who are doing that during the stream, and of course your super chat donations have been appreciated as well. Let's see what else we get. Could North Georgia see snow? First of all, no, not out of the system. You got to wait at least a week, I believe, in North Georgia for any sort of snow, unless you're in those far, and not even the highest mountains are really anticipating snow based on these latest models for this storm. Once it gets off the East Coast, then we'll have to watch signals, and it's especially the GFS model that's locking in on maybe some southern snow signals that could come along from Wednesday to Friday next week. It's not a given for anyone, but from Wednesday to Friday, notice we could see a southern snow track somewhere, and maybe that could include North Georgia. It's too early to really tell or give any specific details on that. And the same kind of goes with Charlotte, North Carolina on that. I see a comment about Central and Charlotte, North Carolina. By the way, North Carolina, all these areas, North Georgia, South Carolina into North Carolina, you are looking at plain old rain and maybe even some stronger thunderstorms the further south you go, going out of Sunday into Monday with this winter storm. How much snow do I think could occur into southeast Nebraska? That's a good question. We haven't seen a Nebraska commenter yet. It's so good to have so many of you in here asking about different areas. I really just, it's really exciting to see all of you. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button down below if you are new to the channel and you enjoy these live streams, as well as especially when I do forecast videos. Let's see here. Yeah, southeast Nebraska, it certainly looks like you could get multiple possible inches of snow. Is it going to be the heaviest snowfall? I don't believe so, that anybody, in comparison to what we're going to see, especially as you go hundreds of miles to your southeast, pushing into Missouri, parts of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. But you could definitely get multiple inches there. Let me actually pull up your national blend of models snowfall. This pretty much is very similar to what the ensembles show, but look at what it's indicating. I think southeast Nebraska, you're trending the general, especially since it's near term, I can give you more of a total forecast. More like 3 to 6 inches, I think, would be a decent bet. Don't want to go too much above that, though. Around 3 to 4 would probably be a decent estimate. And then notice, again, those snow totals pick up somewhere here. Again, I think it's in central Indiana, central, maybe southern Indiana, and central southern parts of Ohio, and then maybe northern Kentucky, where that best chance for that snow line and that heaviest snow stripe is going to go. Before I get to your other questions, I see there in the chat, live chat, Samuel Wilkinson Jr. I do want to answer Kitty123. It says no snow in North Texas. If you were checking the weather app, that's not going to lock in on specific model signals that we're seeing. All I'm telling you is I think the snow chance is increasing for down the line, some point mid to late next week. But again, that's why I said at the start of the stream, I don't want to talk about this too much. This is too far out to really break down in more detail. We'll have to kind of break that down later on. That'll be something for another video or stream down the line. Could the snow push more north? Well, let's talk about North Alabama. Then we're talking about northern and central Iowa. North Alabama, well, northern Alabama, you're not getting any snow or freezing rain or anything like that. I don't think that's any time soon into the early part of next week with that winter storm. Could we get something with the mid to late week signal for next week? Yes, but again, too far out to really break down in detail at this time. Could the snow push more north into central Iowa? As of now, models are not really saying too much further north than a place like Des Moines, but we could definitely pick up 3 to 6 inches in some parts of south central Iowa. Right now, though, Iowa's more in that closer range part of the track. I mean, look at the GFS. Here's your Euro. They're not too far off for Iowa, and it's looking like mostly, unless you're right along that Iowa-Missouri border, you're not going to be getting more than a couple inches in many of the spots there. So don't get your hopes up too much there. Let's see. Samuel Wilkinson Jr., you've been waiting patiently with your question. Weather for Vicksburg, Mississippi, or Jackson, Mississippi. Let's just talk about Mississippi as a whole again. Through the day Sunday, we're watching just this consistent Gulf moisture being pumped up into a low-pressure system. That means showers. That means thunderstorms. That means you're getting some action into those zones, and it looks like my little subscriber count thing was frozen. There we go. Showers and storms here in the parts of Louisiana, Mississippi. We'll have to watch those. We could even see some severe weather and gusty winds as these push through with this front sometime out of the midday time frame into the afternoon or somewhere in there as we go into our Sunday. Then it pushes east. We cool down a lot more, and it generally looks like from there we'll have to see if we could get a snow chance that far south. It wouldn't be impossible as we go towards the middle of the back half of next week, but again, not all models are locked in on a specific signal just yet. All right. I am ending the questions for a second at least, as we're going to break down some of these specific feels-like temperatures, because I forgot to do that at the beginning of the stream. Let me do that for you here, using your possible feels-like temperatures, at least that we're going to see as we go down the line using your GFS model. Again, thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in, and I really appreciate it. I normally post evening, 7 Eastern Time, 6 Central Time, weather videos. But today we are doing a live stream. Okay, here we go. This is into our Sunday afternoon. Here's your feels-like temperatures. This really does a good job of showing you what's going on with your winter storm across the country. I don't know what's going on with my little subscribe thing. I don't things messed up on the top left of your screen. But I digress from that. Here's your cold front. Right along that, severe thunderstorms possible. We're watching as we're in the 60s and 70s at least into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama into our Sunday afternoon. You go back on up here into parts of the north central United States, coming out of Montana and then sinking down here into the central and north central plains, coming into the Midwest as well, looking like 0 to even below 0 possible wind chills around that time Sunday. But look at what happens as we go deeper into next week. This is that concerning chill. For example, Tuesday morning, here's Tuesday morning, lots of sub-zero wind chills even sinking down into Missouri and Illinois. By Wednesday, January 8th, the GFS model saying North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, over here to West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, up here into Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, all of you waking up Wednesday morning to below 0 wind chills. So I should have mentioned this earlier on in the stream. That's my apologies. But people, pipes, and pets, you got to be worried about those 3 things, especially when it's getting this cold out there across the United States. European model, not very different at all for that general Tuesday into Wednesday time frame, showing a very cold air mass, especially coming out of the north central plains, diving down into the Ohio Valley. And one of our coldest mornings for parts here of the central Appalachians could be Thursday morning when we're feeling like -10, maybe even in some parts here of the central Appalachians as you go higher up. And even as far south here, look at this, as central Florida, feeling like below around 30 on, say, Thursday, January 9th in the morning. This is a big and expansive cold blast, especially east of the Rockies in comparison to average, while we're technically above average out west. Again, think of the jet stream as a big setup of waves. Things, energy likes to move in waves. You got a big ridge where the jet stream's pushing north and a huge one at that into the west. Then you're likely to have a big trough where the jet stream dips down into the east, and that's exactly what we're expected to see through a lot of next week. And again, when you got the jet stream dipping down like this, for those of you who are on here, it seems like a lot of people are interested in what could happen in the south. Something could pivot along that jet stream, and could that mean snow for the south with all this cool air in place next week? Yes, because again, with all this cool air coming down into the north central U.S., pushing all the way as far south as the Ohio Valley, you're so cold and dry with that cold up here into the north central U.S., it's almost a lower chance of snow here than it would be down here, just because it's cold, but it's not, as dry down into the south with this kind of setup. And that's where the south actually finds itself in a slightly better situation, I'd say anyway, for some increasing snow chances at least as we go towards next week. You're welcome for the stream, Kickapoo trackers. Any risk of winter storms in North Carolina next week? Yeah, I can't talk about specific signals, but just like I said, with this kind of pattern where you got to be kind of closer to the Gulf Coast to get a lot of moisture in many cases, I think snow chances are going to ramp up sometime out of Wednesday, maybe around here, towards Thursday and towards Friday like this, if you go with like the GFS model. But the Euro doesn't show anything, so don't look at any signal too much just yet. Don't buy into anything. There's going to be someone who I'm not going to name, posting videos every day saying a monster blizzard's coming. I'm not going to name drop. Hopefully no one name drops in the comments now, but, just don't click on all that junk. What are the odds the models change in favor for Northeast New Jersey? All right, that's going to be one of the last questions I answer here on the stream, and then all other comments, questions, concerns, all of that can be answered down in the and regular comments after the stream. Northeast New Jersey, though, let's go ahead and look at the chance of snow there. Here's your GFS. Not really a big chance of snow Sunday and Monday there. Euro is saying Northeast New Jersey could be in that bullseye for heavy snow. I think the Mid-Atlantic is kind of being not talked about maybe as much, and that's also me, who's not been talking about the Mid-Atlantic as much out of the snow. The confidence is technically lower because it's the furthest out for this event, right, as we go towards early Monday in those zones. But, man, if it lines up right, even Northeast New Jersey could get multiple inches of snow. Am I saying feet? I doubt you're going to be measuring it in feet there, but someone along, this general track in here is going to probably measure it in feet. It's just not going to be Northeast New Jersey, but yes, you could get a shift, and you could get included in some heavier totals there. But yeah, that is going to be about all I have to talk about for this specific live stream. Unless there's any super chat here to end the stream with a final comment or question, I'm going to end this at this point in time. I appreciate everybody for all of the recent support. The crazy growth to finish 2024 and push into 2025 has been insane. Remember, though, you can always ask any additional comments, questions, concerns you have down in the regular comments section after this live stream ends and is still kind of floating around as, like, I guess a regular video would in the YouTube algorithm. But that is going to be it for this live stream. I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in. And normally I do weather forecast videos, so make sure you're turning on that notification bell so you never miss a forecast video when I post those. But for now, that is going to be it, everyone. Hit the like button on this stream. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thank you so much, everybody. And I'm sorry if I missed your comment or question. Again, you can always leave them down below after this stream.